Welcome to the Hot Seat powered by Affordable Staff. David Judge here, and we're at episode 7 of the first season of the Hot Seat, where we talk to industry influencers that have worked hands-on in the real estate industry. We find out where these influencers see current and future trends and what you can do about it to support and grow your business. Now, there are 9 episodes, so there are 2 left in the first season, and each episode is released every second Tuesday guaranteed. Now, today's guest is Michael Furlong from Rentrollmaximiser, and he shares his journey from hospitality to property management. Now, I have to tell you at the very beginning that this is going to be a very controversial hot seat, and Michael's going to explain why he purchased his first 13 investment properties and how it prompted his career change. Now, the controversial parts. Michael discusses why most PMs are rent collectors and don't add any value to the industry, why most property managers don't understand investment tax, don't understand how to fill in an authority or how GST works, and why this needs to change for the industry to grow, why PMs make the mistake of positioning themselves as replaceable services like gyms mowing as opposed to a real profession like a GP, and why you should never cross the path of a chef that is holding a knife. Now, I have to admit, while Michael does share a lot of challenges in the industry, he also backs it up with real ideas and how we can fix those problems. So this episode is really worth a listen. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let's go and roll it. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are here at the Hot Seat with Damien. How are you, Damien?
Good, David. How are you? And we've got Michael joining us today. So
hi, guys.
Michael.
Yep.
And you're here on the Gold Coast with us at the moment. Thank
Absolutely.
you for flying up. How's the weather?
It's been much better than Melbourne. Melbourne, at the moment, I called in to the family, and
Yes.
It's cold, it's wet, and the power was disconnected. There were storms coming through, so I think it's Wizard of Oz style.
That's supposed to be tomorrow in Queensland, I've heard.
Is it really?
Yeah, there's a cold front. Maybe.
So was it your fault?
I've come up to the nicer weather, and it wasn't well received when I called back into the family to ask how their day was going. And the power's out, and
there's no heating.
And it's cold, and rain was coming in horizontally.
Oh, no.
So I'm pleased to be here. Is the
Yeah,
answer?
well, thank you very much for coming along and answering a couple of our questions.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And the purpose of this is really to get an understanding of your thoughts of the industry, the history you've had in the industry, and where you see the industry going.
Absolutely.
Sounds cool?
Yeah.
Okay, so
looking forward to it.
Let's start off with, first of all, just give us a bit of a background about your experience and where you've come in through from the industry.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll explain where I am today and how I've got to there. So right at the moment, I'm consulting, training, speaking, working with a lot of agency principals across the country and New Zealand as well to try and make their business a little bit better. The reason why I set that up was when I had my agency, which was some years ago, if there was somebody that was doing the same thing that I'm offering now, I probably would have brought them in and really relished being able to have that peer support. So as an independent, I never had that opportunity. So my background initially was as a chef. So that really has nothing to do with real estate. This is common.
We hear this regularly.
Yeah. So here's the reason why I even bring that up is because it's a hospitality background, and I feel that there are a lot of really good people in real estate that are from hospitality because people who do really well in real estate, as in hospitality, they have a servant's approach.
Yes.
So, and that's where I was from. So I actually spent 15 years as a chef in some really good places, and then started buying property from an investment point of view. Went into the investment market, so we're talking late 90s, into the investment market, and then from that, in our first year, between myself, my business partner, and a close friend, we bought 13 properties, and realised that all of us were making more money out of the property growth than what we were out of the cooking. We're all cooking, and so from that I then went into property management, into sales and real estate. So that's the background.
I started in hospitality as well, going back many years ago. Have you ever thrown a knife at anybody as a chef?
Yes, Your Honour. But I plead not guilty.
Well, they said that it was my fault that they were throwing the knife at me because I was always in the front of house.
Well, you had to actually come in, so there was mitigating circumstances there, and I think that I think if that was a murder charge, that would be intent.
That's
mine might be a manslaughter.
Yes.
So I was moving a little bit away from the cooking.
Right, we can talk for hours.
That's right.
Have you ever stabbed anybody? Is the question.
No, but I have been stabbed before.
I'll show you a scar as well where I was stabbed in the arm, and then also that was before service. So for those that are listening that are in food, you'll understand that. So before service, around 11:30, the head chef actually stabbed me in the arm because he was messing about. And then I was quite upset. I was only an apprentice at this stage. Back then, you were allowed to do those things to apprentices. So I got stabbed in the arm thinking, okay, straight off to hospital. And he said, Friday lunch, after lunch, you can go to the hospital. So after lunch, I've got a T-tail wrapped around my arm. After lunch, into service, I said to him, okay, we're going off to the hospital. He has a look at it. He says, it's not that bad. Jump on the tram, take yourself to hospital. I'm going to play golf. Things have changed in the hospitality industry a little bit. So now back to real estate. Why are we here?
And I was actually just thinking, geez, Ira's going to have fun editing.
Ira's going to have fun editing.
So what are you saying is the biggest problems, and I suppose challenges and from there, I suppose opportunities in the real estate property management industry right now?
Yeah. So my focus at the moment, Damien, is really in the property management space. So I'm trying to work specifically with directors, and I see that there are a lot of directors. So if I sort of break it all down from the layers that I think are quite a complex answer to that question. But firstly, too many principals don't have the experience as being business owners, and as a result, they then take on staff, and they feel as though they have to know the answer to everything. Yes. And they really struggle. They might have been exceptional property managers or exceptional salespeople, and then they go off and they think that they want to be a business owner. I saw the same thing when I was cooking as well. So a lot of chefs then go out and become restaurant owners. Worst restaurant owners are chefs.
Yes.
Because they're great in the kitchen but not good with the books. Property management and sales, to a lesser degree, are very much similar. So I think there are different skills that are needed to be a business owner than there are to be a great salesperson and great property manager. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we see at the moment. And where do you learn that? And the only place you can learn is on the job. And unfortunately, what happens is along the way that those people are then training staff or trialling their business or testing their skills, and the staff become casualties along the way.
Yes.
So we've all worked for people, and I know early in the piece, my staff would have been saying the same thing about me. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was a really difficult person to work with.
And that's what I was going to ask, is how did you then make that transition to business owner?
Sure, yeah. So I was not dissimilar. So my path has come through from a sales point of view, project marketing, made some money, and then bought into a rent roll. Now here's the point that I would like to really make. I didn't understand the rent roll.
Yeah.
I didn't like the rent roll. I didn't want the rent roll, but I knew it was the only asset that we had. So I liked the recurring income part of it, but I didn't understand it. So we hired somebody that was probably not somebody I would recruit now. And that person was running the business for us and had a business partner, and that just wasn't working as well. So we weren't really... Neither of us should have been in the business of property management.
Yes.
We were great at sales, but we owned the rent roll because we knew it was an extension. I then got to a stage where when we moved those people on, both my business partner and also the GM, that I sat down with the staff and said, I can't do any worse than we currently are at the moment. So you need to help me. You need to teach me what it is I need to learn. And what I did was I actually surveyed the staff, or I interviewed the staff. I said, what is the number one thing that you don't like about this place?
Yes.
Unanimous, hands down, without any thinking, was me. It was me. I was the number one thing I didn't like. And it was interesting because I was about 12 staff at that stage. All 12 of them were consistent in the fact that I had no idea what I was doing, and I made their job worse.
How'd that feel?
Luckily, I was fairly confident of myself, so I was able to take that chink in the armour okay.
Yes.
But I now see that as a real turning point for me, because I was open enough, and it wasn't straight away, I can assure you of that. You know, you get your back up, you get defensive, and you think, well, hang on, I'm the owner here, my name's on the door. But that's the arrogance side of it coming through. And
we offer anonymous feedback forms in our business. So people can offer the staff, so they can offer the feedback, and it gives them the opportunity to say what they really want to say.
Sure.
And there will be times where they'll just say something blasé because something would have occurred. They don't like this person's shoes. They don't like that person's this. They don't like that. But if there's a consistent enough number of mentions about it, and you know that it's valid, then you can actually start to address it, and it's an opportunity to go and improve what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So getting feedback is absolutely huge.
Yeah, so I was getting some fairly strong feedback and consistent feedback. So some learning. So I had to really have a look at myself. And so again, cup in hand, went to the staff, and then these were some really pivotal turning points for us in the business. I asked the staff, what is it you don't like about the business? Me, unanimous. I need to change. the next thing that I needed to look at was, what is it you don't like about your job? What were the things? List all the things that you don't like. Why? Because I didn't understand property management. And I said to them, it can't be that hard. And I was the owner. So, and again, it's not, I don't say it's arrogance, or it's just pure ignorance or naivety. Why is it so difficult? Why do we have so many confrontations? Why are there issues at the start and then issues at the back? And why aren't the tenants paying their rent? And all these sorts of things. And so they sat down and they said, here are all the things that we don't like about the job, the place, the premises. We had no idea what we were doing, so we made stuff up along the way. So that showed to me that we had a lack of systems and process. So we developed those. Then we had a look at what are the things that you didn't like about your job, and they talked to us around and we were furnished. So as a business, we had a lot of furnished. We had over 200 properties that were furnished. Now, most agencies don't want to touch furnished because they're problematic. So we exacerbated that. We actually elevated the amount of problems because we had no systems. So we then looked at it and said, well, let's develop some systems. So everything that we did in our business from there on in. So I had the business for nearly 10 years. The first 5 years were horrible. And if there's any staff that worked with me at that particular point in time, I apologise wholeheartedly because the next 5 years was fantastic.
Yes.
I started to buy into the staff, and I really backed the staff. We changed a whole range of things. Coming to conferences, I became a student.
Yes.
What I wanted to do was I understood really, really quickly that I didn't know what I needed to know. So I started to seek those people out, and they were across the country. Now, so we're 2018, those people are now really strong friends of mine.
Yes.
And I do a lot of work with them. I either speak on their stage, I go to their conferences, I'm an advocate for them, because some years ago when I was a person who was just at their coattails, they really gave me a lot of time. And so that's what I try to do now to agency principals. I value the fact that I have some knowledge.
Yes.
And I'm now trying to pass that back through to stop them going through what I went through.
And it's also a case in a lot of ways I've found in my journey over the last 20 odd years as a business owner on and off, that it's the stuff that you don't know about. Sure. And then when you're along at conferences and you're there, being mentored by or guided by people, that you'll come across this stuff. It's like, I had no idea that I had to know about this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so here's the thing as well, David, that when I didn't understand the risks associated with being a property management business owner,
yes,
I was okay and I slept really well.
Yeah.
Once I understood the risks and then the fact that we didn't have systems for it, or keys were just being left anywhere, or we didn't know where the money was. I don't want it to make out as though it was as bad as... Actually, no, I will. It was pretty ordinary. It got to a stage where I didn't want to go to work on some days because I knew that it was just going to be a bushfire after bushfire.
Yep.
So then I understood the risks.
Yeah.
Then I had to fast track to then develop those systems. And that was a 2-year journey for us. And we went from... it's interesting, I say it's from chaos to award winning. So those people really helped us, and we went from an absolute dysfunctional environment to 2 years later winning awards, and we've won awards for Property Management Company of the Year. So they're important things.
And your people on that journey?
Yeah, great people.
Stayed with you through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So Damien, so one of the things that I felt was really important for me was that I was already... So there was a financial element that I was involved in the business, and I looked at it from the staffing point of view. How do I go about developing these people? So I'm a big rap for making sure that real estate agents are licensed.
Yes.
So we put through 8 people through their full license, and we supported that through their full license. And I wasn't much older than this, but I still have a photograph of one of my sales PAs who'd been with us from property management. She started on reception, property management. She was with me with marketing. She was my assistant for a period of time. The day that she got her license, we took photographs. I was like a proud dad because she got her license, because she stuck fat with the journey. She's now still working with some of Melbourne's really quite good real estate agents. And I know that I did the right thing by her. So the staff went along through the journey. So I've got a lot of key staff that I'm still comfortable to say that I would consider that they're now my friends. Yep. Yeah.
So what are you seeing as the biggest... What are the changes that you're seeing that you think are going to happen over the next couple of years? There's a lot of talk about disruption in the real estate and more specifically property management industry. what's your opinion? What are you seeing out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're our own worst enemy, to be fair. I think there's such a different layer of property management businesses. I'm working in a suburb at the moment. It doesn't matter which suburb it is. My office was in Richmond, and there were 13 real estate agents in Richmond and Melbourne. So I was looking at this. So first you've got your immediate competitors. Who are my immediate competitors? And then we all had this race to the bottom. Who was charging low fees? And so I made it real. I made a conscious decision at that point in time not to look at anyone else as a competitor, to look at them being the people who are following me. So I set the fees that I needed to charge. Yep. So I think the biggest issue that we have in the marketplace now is principals being willing to actually say, this is what it's costing me to run the business and charge appropriately for them, and then back themselves in for the service. So become the cream on the top. So that's I think the biggest issue is the fact that we're not charging enough for the services. So as a result of that, as an industry, we are letting ourselves down by trying to squeeze all the services that are required and the legislation and the new technology and apps and all this sort of thing. All of that needs to be squeezed into what I'm hearing is 4 and 5% management fees. Which is just ludicrous. So
something has to give.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think we are our own worst enemy in the fact that. And here's the next point that I feel is a real issue, and it's something which I try and teach in some of the workshops that I deliver. It's about understanding where you fit as a property management person, whatever role that is, leasing, BDM, owner, within the client's journey. Very few of us have an understanding of being an investor. Now, I came into this industry as an investor. And the whole reason why I came into the industry is because I felt that I was able to offer services from what the customer wanted. So let's develop what the customer wants. Now, I talk to property managers all the time. They don't understand investment. They don't understand tax. They've got no idea about... Many of them can't understand how to fill in an authority.
Yes.
They don't understand how GST works. Now, is this their fault? We could blame them. But it's just a lack of... Kids coming out of school now don't understand how to work GST.
Yes.
They don't understand that. So then when you go and teach them, part of my training was I was doing some work with agents reps. And the biggest issue was trying to get people to calculate commission on 10% of the GST. So as much as we're talking about disruption, as much as we're talking about Airbnb, and I've just come from a workshop now where someone's talking about Airtasker coming in and Airbnb and a number of other disruptions, I think the biggest issue that we have at the moment is trying to squeeze so many services into our low fees because we don't value ourselves as a profession. We still see ourselves as a service.
Yes.
At the moment that paradigm shifts, that we go from being a service, which is your gym's mowing and your lawn mowing and your garden keeping, that's a service, easily disposed of. It's a commodity, to becoming a profession. The moment you do that, you never walk into your doctor and ask your doctor to negotiate rates.
Yes.
And you never once would walk into a doctor and then ask them and expect that they've never looked at the medical journals or that they're not keeping up with professional indemnity and professional training. You wouldn't expect that. But as an industry, you can do a week's agent's rep course and then start and 25 years later and never had any more formal training.
Yeah. And that's right. And the doctor's really considered an authority in what they do.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Well, again, it becomes your profession.
Yes.
So the moment that we start to become part of that journey for a landlord, then we're going to be paid for that. Yes. But we don't offer it. So many agencies are still out there, and as much as they complain, they whinge and they moan and they bitch about the fact that they're not, but that they're just the expectation is they're just collecting the rent and finding a tenant. In the norm, a lot of them that's all they're doing. Yes. Because they're not adding any other value to the landlords.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. Some of our clients, I know, they live the real estate business as a lifestyle. Yes. And as a result, they create themselves, and I used the term authority beforehand, they create themselves as an authority. Absolutely. They're almost like the Lord Mayor of the mayor of their area. So they're the go-to person when it comes to anything around property. And that positioning in itself, that comes with an associated value, and they're smashing it as a result.
And it's interesting, if you and so our business, when we had the business, I felt as though I had an influence with and over the buying decisions of my clients. So if I had a property that was a really good property that I felt was a good investment, I would ring clients and say, here's the next property that you're going to purchase.
Yes. Yep.
Not, are you interested in looking at buying a property? Here's the next one, because I know what you're after. I know what you've got. I'm managing your portfolio in my structure, I know what equity roughly you've got because I know I was involved in the buying and the decision making there. These are all working really well, so why not look at this opportunity?
Yes.
And by doing so, even if I wasn't the person that they were buying the property through, I was certainly the person they were looking to put the management through because they knew that I had their best interest as part of that investment journey.
Yep.
And again, we struggle to get, we don't teach that.
Yes.
Yep.
So property managers aren't taught that. Property managers are taught to collect the rent, do a routine inspection, do a condition report. All those things can be taught to anybody, but upskill. Principals need to upskill. I'm passionate here, Damien.
You just made me remember a conversation we had the other day. So what is the role? What do you think property managers think their role is?
Most of them don't see themselves as part of that journey. Is that where you're heading? It's that whole investment journey. And if I could ask any property manager to ask themselves this question: if your landlord is at a dinner party on a Saturday night, do you come up when they talk about in favourable terms? Do you come up as the person, hey, you need to talk to my property manager. They're part of my team. Yeah. Now, I'm involved in I network a lot of people. So if you came to me and you said, Michael, I'm looking for a really good finance person, I've got go-to people. Mm. If you're looking for a solicitor, I've got those people. If you're looking for a property manager, I've got those people. Yeah. But in my experience, if you're not part of that, if you're not in the conversation at a dinner party, then you have no relationship.
Yes.
You're a service. Yeah, and property managers see themselves as providing a service.
That's why I believe that we do outsourcing. That's why I believe people are scared of outsourcing because of that whole offering a service as opposed to being a part of that conversation like you spoke about.
Yeah, it's interesting. And obviously it's relatively new with me being involved in more taking on board and embracing offices with outsourcing.
Yes.
And I say to the principals there, if you're looking to outsource, there's an education process that's needed in that first initial stages. Mm. But it's not the team overseas that need to be educated, it's you.
Yes.
It's you need to feel comfortable of what it is that you can let go of. Mm. Now, interestingly enough, most of the stuff that they let go of, they would have had no idea happens anyway.
Yes.
So now we're just getting some sort of level of compliance and checklists that actually work. So hopefully that's giving you an indication of where I see some of our problems. And again, this is my 20th year. I started the real estate in 98.
Yes.
Whilst I was still cooking and started real estate. So I see myself, and the other thing that I think is really important is property managers put themselves down a little bit because they see themselves as a property manager. Mm. And I always said to whenever I was recruiting, and I really enjoyed working with younger people that are just starting out because they were fresh, and I was trying to influence them and say, you're a real estate agent who works in this department. You're a real estate agent firstly and primarily, and you need to take some ownership and respect for your own professional integrity because that's the only thing that you can control is your own professional integrity, your knowledge.
Yes.
Don't ever ask anyone else to try and teach you. Go out and learn. Mm. You'll be employable. You'll never get the sack if the hole's that big that when you left, it couldn't be replaced.
Yep.
Yes.
But if you go on holidays and no one really noticed, probably time to start looking for another job.
Are you going on holidays?
That's why I work for myself now. If I go,
that's right.
And that was the other thing as well. And probably now, when I sold the business, and I sold the rent roll specifically so that I could develop some time with the kids.
Yeah. And
both of my children were going through primary school at that stage, and my son was then going into high school. And I wanted to make sure that I was around for that year 7 year. And I look around and I'm a bit of I'd like to think I'm a thinker. So I look around at a lot of real estate agents who have got really poor relationships with their kids, really poor relationships with their partners, really poor home work-life balance. And I had a really good business. We had just won awards. The business was at its absolute peak, and that's when I decided to sell. Yep. And I decided to sell because we chose to, and I wanted to then go off. And it financially cost an enormous amount of money to then spend that year 7 year. But that's a year 7 year with my son that I could never get back ever again if I didn't invest it. So again, you need to be able to then, you need to have a look around and say, why are we in this business? Mm. But what I did do was when I set up the consultancy, the entire objective was that I didn't want to have permanent staff.
Yes.
All of my staff now are outsourced staff. And so I don't want to be in a permanent office. I want to be in an office where I can float. Yep. And if I do take 2 days off to go and watch the kids play a sport, no one's going to know.
Yes.
So whilst I'm I'm with clients, I'm 100% focused on what they're doing with them. But when I'm off, I'm focused on other things. So I think balance is important.
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose wrapping it up.
I thought you were going to wrap me up.
I'm going to wrap you up. So
I'm getting this.
Yeah,
That's right. The person there is saying.
We're running out of tape. Put another reel in.
So how do people get in contact with you? I suppose it's a great time for shameless plug if people...
And what are you doing? What are you doing at the moment in business?
Yeah, so interestingly enough now, so what I've done is I've aligned myself with LPMA, and it's their clients, the Leading Property Managers Association, and I'm working as a consultant within myself. So my business is RentrollMaximiser, and I'm working specifically in training. So I'm doing a lot of training for corporate offices. So that's stand up 20, 50, 30 people standing in front of an audience and teaching the fundamentals, but with a little bit more of a twist. Some of the training that I've seen is very outdated, and if I see another VCAT training, I'll explode. The amount of times that we're seeing those, and it's the same old. So I've run a number of different courses that are different. That I'm writing different material. So I'm delivering the training, in-office consulting. So standing with the principal side by side in office at a desk with an email, with a profile, and working with their staff, and I'm doing that as well. And then, of course, the speaking. So,
and best way to get in contact with you?
Probably through LinkedIn is the best way to do it, or through Facebook. And again, I'm not looking to try and go out and change the entire world. If I can change an office at a time and change the industry at a time, I do believe, and you hear this a lot, and it sounds really corny, but this industry has given me an enormous amount of financial success, and it's also allowed me to now have the flexibility to do a few more things. I'm still working in enormous hours, but a little bit more flexibility. And I think it's important if we can get the people who are starting the industry to do things correctly.
Yes.
So anyone that's looking to try and bring on new staff, I have an onboarding process. And they'd love to even I would be happy if they shot me a message through LinkedIn and they wanted me I'll send them the whole 12-month onboarding process. It's a checklist. It's not that overly detailed, but most onboarding, when I go into an office and I ask a staff member, how long was your onboarding? And it's generally somewhere between 9 a.m. was the start when they start on a Monday morning, and it generally stops somewhere around 9:30, 10:30 on that first Monday morning. Our onboarding process that we've developed is a 12-month program, and you should be onboarding your staff. If you want to look at staff retention, if you've got an issue with staff retention, which I did, I hated getting that little white envelope, which is, Michael, we really love working here, which is code for you suck. And I'm out of here, which is code for I can't wait.
Yes.
I hated that. So now we have a staff retention program.
Fantastic. And we'll link that in the notes for everybody as well. So
fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate everything you're doing in the industry and spending the time to have a talk to us about your business and where you're going now and where you're going in the future. And thank you, everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for your interest. Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you for listening to this episode with Michael. And before you go, I'd like to ask if you enjoyed this episode, you subscribe to our podcast, which you can find if you search for The Hot Seat, wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a review, as they really do count. I also wanted to remind you that The Hot Seat is powered by affordable staff, and if I am 100% honest, I could not put together The Hot Seat without outsourcing every component. I literally record the footage that you're looking at now and the audio. I send it to our Philippines office and they do the rest. So thank you to our team, especially Ira. Okay, great. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Hot Seat.